I'd like to thank you all for coming over to the Northwest Ohio Passenger Rail Association's meeting for November 14th. I'd like to start with a picture. Tom Galloway and I are running this merry men of misfits. I sent you out a copy of the approval of the meeting minutes. One of the things we do not have is a quorum currently, and that is because our membership level has decreased to such an extent that a quorum is just not feasible. But we are in the process of actually doing better on that. We've had some stuff done behind the scenes, especially to our 501(c)(3), which Frank Butwin will be talking about in a little bit. We're going to forego the approval of the meeting minutes until we are able to develop enough memberships to actually have a quorum. We feel that for right now, as long as we do great documentation on our meetings, along with transparency as to what our financials are looking like, we can weather the storm until we get back on our feet. Frank,
Yep.
I understand you're on the call. Is that
Yes,
right?
I am, sir.
Well, Frank's going to give us the treasurer's report, and he's also going to talk about the status of our 501(c)(3) and our membership drive. Go ahead,
Okay.
Frank.
Okay, thank you. Uh, we currently have in our Citizens Bank a 5,000. Glenn, are you writing this down?
Yep.
Okay, $5,884.77. For the past several months, we really haven't had any activity much, except for the post office box, which I can get into, but um, because well, that's another story. Anyway, we've been gaining like 5 cents on interest every month. So that's where we stand now. And we are also expecting about that same amount, about $6,000 coming from Train Day Toledo. And that's another issue to talk about. So put that on your agenda if you haven't already. So in addition, that is not recorded here on this bank statement, which was at the end of October. In the past few days, we have deposited 3 memberships and a little bit of a gift. So, we're going to add maybe $125 or something to that in the next few days. And membership wise, okay, so we just recently sent out a membership form. I think Glenn, you sent it out to a lot of people, and that's partly the reason why 3 memberships did come in. There may be more in the float. So I'm trying to see my membership stuff. I think maybe it's in the other room. Can you give me I'm gonna go get that. Okay, hang on.
Well, in the meantime, while he's getting that, 2 of the people that turned in their membership was Alan Corbett, and he also gave a little bit of a donation, and Reynolds Farley. We thank them for continuing to stay with us, our organization. We hope to actually improve on things moving forward. Well, actually, talk about the 501(c)(3) and how.
Okay, 501(c)(3. We got something in the correspondence stating that we were not in compliance, and this was with the Attorney General's office where you have to file annual reports. So in digging into it, we did not have an annual report for 2022. So I dug up the information, and basically, because we don't have that much of a revenue stream, I just had to put in the numbers from the bank statements. So 22 is taken care of. And then I also did 2024, which hadn't been done yet because we were kind of, in a little bit of a limbo, didn't know which way to go exactly. So that's taken care of for 2024. Once we get into 2026, I can do 2025. So now we're in compliance. And then I wanted to go to the Secretary of State's office and to change over the addresses, phone numbers that's on file because we've had new people, and also have the statutory agent changed. I don't know who it was, or apparently we were not registered with the Secretary of State. They put our name in all different ways but loose and could not find anything. And they asked for a number. a charter number, and I didn't see it in any of my records, and I asked other people, and nobody's came up with something. So I can only assume that since we've been around since what, the 90s or something, we have not been registered with the Secretary of State's office. To do that will cost about $100. And so I think that that's probably in a couple of weeks, that's probably what we will do.
Okay.
And also with the federal, the Form 990N has been filed for last year already. That's in place too.
Lieu of a quorum, and in order for us to get our 501c3 back up and running, if there is no objections to any of the people within the Northwest Ohio Passenger Rail Association, we're going to authorize this money to be spent in order to the Secretary of State in order to get in compliance with the state. So if I don't hear any objections, if you have objections, and you please send them to me in writing, nwohiopassengerrail@gmail.com. That way I can disseminate it out to the appropriate people. Okay.
Okay. Membership wise, these are the people that I have money for 2025 that have paid for 2025. Some of the people that paid recently, what we decided to do was if they paid since we're late in the year and joining in 2025, that we would also give as a little bit of a bonus to 2026. So these are the people. There's myself. We have Reynolds Farley, Herb Hoeing, and Glenn, you're on the list. James Parsons. And then we also have Alan Corbett. Was there another one, Glenn, that we had talked about? Do you remember?
That was it for right now for the step, just the membership and the 501c3.
Yeah, so that comes to 6. So, but like I said, we just kind of got into this and really moving forward now. So if there's anybody online that didn't get the form, I mean, I think they need to speak up. And I think we're going to have some more coming in.
Yeah. And one other thing too, we did some digging on the 501c3 and we found out that we have a PayPal account, but it hasn't been used and it hasn't been updated. And so over the next 2 months in January, we feel it necessary to get into the 21st century and be able to pay for your memberships and any type of rail form we do. You should be able to pay online. And seeing how we have a PayPal account, but we're not sure on the status or how it's been working, that's going to be on our list of things to do, and we will report back in January on the PayPal account and give you an update on that. Moving along, we got my chair's report. On the chair's report, I want to talk to you about our mission. And one of the things, we have a 4-pillar mission. And actually, I'm glad my buddy Bill Hutchinson's today, because reviewing his slides last night, it just warmed my heart, because it's nice to be on the same page when you don't even know you're on the same page. We have a 4-pillar mission, and the first one is that we actively promote passenger rail as a viable transport option at public events with emphasis on the disabled. First of all, being an emergency room nurse for 35 years, I've got a little bit more hard empathy with the disabled. I feel that if we can concentrate our door to train, back to door process for disabled people who have to navigate with wheelchairs, or who are blind, or who are deaf, or who can't speak, any of those issues, or for whatever other issues, if we concentrate on those people, then us walkie-talkies, it's a snap for us, because we don't have to navigate those things. So that's why we wanted to put an emphasis on the disabled and to work closely with our friends over at the Disability Center to develop a door to train to back to door process so they can utilize the train, because and anybody with a motorized wheelchair will tell you, trying to use that on an airplane, it just isn't a no-go. Next pillar is that we're going to be working closely with our partners, such as Toledo City Council, the Lucas County Commissioners, our buddies over at TMCOG, All Aboard Ohio, our friends at Lakeshore Alliance, and other passenger rail, business, and governmental groups to push for the improvement of passenger rail throughout the state. And we look at this as all rail that is built in the state is good rail because it promotes our ability to show that the economics are there to drive more investment into rail. Our third thing is developing an aggressive marketing strategy to have the Cleveland, Toledo, Detroit corridor to be the first approved corridor for the state. And there's reasons for this. The marketing strategy has already started on this. I've mentioned this at our last TMCOG meeting on passenger rail. ODOT had a stakeholders meeting in mid-October, which I talked to them about it. For those who have already heard me rant about this, please bear with me because I'm going to go through the evidence one more time, and then you'll never hear from me again unless it's in a face-to-face meeting. The first piece of evidence is that there's been a percentage change. And if you look, Toledo is actually in the negatives for employment coming out from February of 2020 to March 2024. We are negative 0.7%. And if you look at our buddies over in Cleveland, they're not doing too well either. For a large size metropolitan area, they're actually minus 1%. So both of us were actually losing jobs more than we were gaining them. And this is from February 2020 to March of 2024. If you look, this is the unemployment figures, first quarter of 2022 to the second quarter of 2025. I was unable to get the third quarter unemployment figures due to the government shutdown. But if you take a look, even starting in the fourth quarter of 2023, we start seeing an eking out of Toledo and Lucas County being at least 1 to 1.5 times, and even at sometimes 2% higher than the national average. One of the things that I've been working on behind the scenes is to try to find out from the first quarter of 2024 to second quarter of 2025, how much of that is chronic unemployment. So stay tuned for that, and I'll get back with you on that. The third piece of evidence is that Lucas County is projected to lose 19.7% of its population by 2050, and that's according to an ODOT report. Right now, between 2023 and right now, we have lost 5,000 people in our county, and that is a big hit onto our tax base. And especially when you think that we're losing jobs, and one of the things that I haven't addressed, and I'm going to be looking into also, is I heard this the other day. A lot of people do not want to come out up here because wages in other areas, like to be paid a nurse in Columbus, actually pays better than to be in Toledo. I had a friend that worked for Survival Flight up in Michigan. And we were talking the other day, and he was saying that he was working over at a hospital here in Toledo full-time. It was working for Survival Flight part-time. And pretty soon his checks, he was making more money with Survival Flight than he was with the hospital, his full-time job. So he wound up switching. He went full-time for Survival Flight, went part-time for the Toledo hospital he was working at. The inability to not only to develop jobs, but to retain them because we're paying competitive wages is something that we need to address. The other piece of evidence, and I just figured this out a couple of days ago, Columbus is number 12 in the large metropolitan areas that have housing starts. They've seen the most with a thing of 14.7 housing starts per month. You compare that with Toledo, Ohio, where we're 11 in the bottom mid-sized metro areas, where we're only having 3.3 housing starts. You look at the housing starts, one more thing. This is kind of like the cherry on top, but the Ohio Capital Journal had an article about the two rail corridors, but Cleveland to Toledo to Detroit was never mentioned. It was the three C and D corridors,
Mm.
which I get that. I support that. But it's like that. Our corridor is like an afterthought. And this is one of the reasons why we feel that it behooves us to promote our corridor first because I was looking up some information the other night to support my idea that by applying infrastructure dollars to underserved areas like our area, then we would be putting the state on a stronger financial footing overall because infrastructure money actually puts out a little bit more money. You get a better return on your money. The evidence I was looking for is all coming back and saying, yeah, but there's inflation now. We're not making as much on infrastructure money just due to the inflation. But I wanted to go back to a previous slide here because if you look at the second number up there, that's Columbus. They had a 3.7 plus percentage rating in employment, and then three lines down, there's Cincinnati, that's 2.3. And my point is this: they're doing okay. Adding more resources into an area that is doing okay would be a little bit, in my estimation, hoarding those resources as opposed to putting them into an underserved area where you can disperse economic development throughout the state and it puts us on a stronger path. Our last pillar is that we're going to work extremely hard, especially this next year, to develop a younger membership base through engagement in the colleges and into groups like the Young Democrats, Young Republicans. Believe me, if you're between the ages of 16 and 25, you're going to see an old man showing up at your doorstep sometime next year. And that guy's going to be me. We want to build this organization for the future. With all that said, didn't take away our thing. And just to let you know, the FRA we have a new boss now. His name is David Fink. He was promoted in October 14th. He was voted on by the Senate, and he is now our Federal Railway Administration administrator. And with that, I turn it over to my buddy, Bill Hutchinson, and he's going to talk to you more about the Lakeshore Alliance and what they're doing.
Well, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, this year you guys are going to see a brand new slide presentation for our Great Lakes Limited proposal. Some of you probably already know what it is, but for those who don't know, it's a concept for a daytime Detroit, Toledo, Cleveland, Buffalo, Albany, New York train over the parts of the Lakeshore route, and as a means to opening up Ohio and other places in this region to rail passenger service during daylight hours. And so I'm going to try to get this thing going here. And here's the share button. All right, well, let's see here. The Lakeshore Rail Alliance is a program of All Aboard Erie out of Erie, PA, which is a 501c3. And they have supported us for the last 4 or 5 years now. And we have been calling for consistent improvements along the current Lakeshore route, as many as 6 through trains between New York and Chicago, and a like number of corridor trains, and higher speeds, greater frequencies, the whole thing. You know all that stuff. So that's basically who we are. And let me see if I can make this work. There we are. And this is
Don't forget to click on slideshow on the top so it can be full screen for everybody.
Slideshow. Yeah, I remember that now. Thanks, Ed. Good thing you're here. The Lakeshore route here is as everybody knows, New York to Chicago with a branch to Boston. And but it also shows us here the two mega regions that this route links, and it's actually the only route, really, in real terms. You've got 60 million people in the Midwest, Great Lakes region, and another 58 million in the Northeast. That's a third of our national population. Anchored by New York and Chicago, two world-class cities, many other large cities on this route, Buffalo, Cleveland, Toledo, you name it, and very high population online, and outside of New York and Chicago, comparatively low cost of living, a lot to offer. Older cities with a lot of amenities that newer places don't seem to have. And it's anchored by the Great Lakes, which is a big, big attraction. People in Cleveland, people associated with development in Cleveland will tell you that they're seeing lots of New York license plates in Cleveland. So we have a lot of things going for us. What's not there is rail passenger service. So this is the result. We're in a transportation desert. We have serious mobility issues. People just can't get around, whether they're handicapped or not. If you look at Ohio, something like 6.2% of Ohio households don't have an automobile. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it translates to almost 800,000 people. So it's a lot. Obviously, the needs are not being met. You can't get there from here. You know, it's just, it's a self-evident problem, and it's a impediment to areas like Toledo, Erie, places like that to recruit people to move in, even if they have a lot of other things going on, a lot of attraction. So again, transportation deserts. And the question is, how do we address that? Well, obviously, we see regional rail as a solution. Most corridors are interstate, and so we need to look at solutions that are more than just state driven. That's part of our focus because there are obvious drawbacks to relying on states to try to work together or to even be motivated to do anything at all, as Ohio has been a problem for years. But on the other hand, there is real money on the table that was just passed by Congress a couple of years ago, and there's a greater public awareness that something really needs to be done to provide alternatives to driving. The cost of driving is going up. It's going to continue to go up. Younger people just don't have, a lot of money, so they'll gravitate to places where they don't have to drive. So you have those kind of things going on. And again, here's our vision. It's a rail-based multimodal transportation system that's integrated so you can get from one place to another without any trouble at all. As an aside, I was just out in California to visit Ed here, and that system out there is marvelous. You get a card, you swipe the card, get on the train, bus, train, light rail, doesn't matter, you can go anywhere. Has to be modern, has to be up to date, has to be attractive, convenient, trains that go when you want to go, convenient bus feeder connections, light rail, transit, all that kind of thing. And it has to be comfortable. It has to have the amenities that people look for today. And it has to be clean. It has to be frequent. And it has to be reasonably fast. It needs to get you to where you want to go in an auto competitive time, at least. And finally, you need to be able to get there from here. So those are pretty broad criteria, and it's all just common sense. Part of the attraction of the automobile is that it's literally a go anywhere, anytime mode of transportation. But the drawback is that to be a member of that, you have to buy a car, pay the insurance, pay the upkeep, pay for the roads and all that. It adds up. And what was it, like add like 7,000 a year, something of that sort? It's a lot
I
of
think
money.
it's over 10,000 now.
Lordy.
And and I should add there that car loan debt surpassed student loan debt in the United States around May, June of 2023.
Yeah.
So it's a huge financial albatross on American households owning a car.
Yeah, it really is. I don't
And
know
I
what.
just heard something recently that car loan debt defaults are on the rise as well.
I
That's very true.
wouldn't be surprised, which is why the used car market's tight. Okay. And then now we're coming to the Great Lakes Limited, issues surrounding that. And there are many, of course. Um, we have nighttime service only, as you well know. Many cities and towns have been left off the map. If you look at the map of Ohio, you cannot make a train trip between one city or another, with the exception of 4 a.m. from Cleveland to Toledo and back, or something like that. You might as well say it's not usable. It's okay if you want to go to the East Coast or something like that, but even there, it's not good because they're all at night. And so, as a result, passenger trains are an abstracto issue here. Yes, there's a vague awareness of they exist. They know that people ride them, this kind of thing. But the problem for us advocates is that it doesn't give us anything to build on. We have nothing to point to. And because of that, it's a harder sell in the State House and elsewhere, particularly in the State House. So that's an issue that has to be addressed somehow. The general public in Ohio over the years has had kind of a passive mindset, and the legislature reflects that. A little bit of skepticism about stuff that's new or different. And so, that's kind of led to the current difficulties that AO has found trying to just simply get the state to rejoin the Midwest. What is it, passenger NIPRIC or MIPRIC? The membership in that, it's what, 25,000 a year or something? And even that is an uphill climb. And in fact, it's gotten to the point now where the state seems like it's backing away, even though it's doing these corridor ID studies. That was something that's already been set in motion. But since then, you've seen things like a de facto takeover of the Ohio Rail Development Commission by the railroads. And now you've got 2 railroad reps on the board and no consumer representation. And one of the reps is from CSX. Surprise, surprise. So you have these issues here, and they really are going to be causing a problem for not just the state, but the whole region. And I thought it was interesting. We had the last meeting that Margaret Clark, the new Amtrak government affairs rep here, mentioned it. She says, "Boy, Ohio is a tough nut to crack." And I said, "Yeah, funny you say that. I've been saying that for the last 30 or 40 years, and it is. It's just going to take some kind of new thinking to crack that. But let's go on from there. And here is Amtrak issues are pretty well known also. The system hasn't grown really over the last 40 years or whatever. Amtrak hasn't really added service on its own outside state-supported services. Its managerial emphasis has been on cutting costs and providing bonuses for such versus providing service. So that's kind of been their mindset. On top of that, we've got questions about what's going to happen with the current fleet of Amfleet equipment once the new aerotrain sets come online. On the other hand, I think due to the current political climate, Amtrak realizes it needs to be seen as being more relevant than in the past. They're feeling the heat. There's some new thinking going on there. Whether that translates into any specific action here yet is yet to be seen, but we're kind of encouraged. And also, I think finally, the corridor ID process is okay for multi-frequency routes that are going to have some major capital investments, but for a single train, that can be done without going through that much more quickly. So this is one of the reasons why we propose this train. Here's what do? We have to face the facts. Ohio is what it is. You've got to find a way to work around that and maybe push it by outflanking it. One of our goals is to look at workarounds that could be getting the MPOs to work together to help fund new services, or the cities, or probably form a joint powers authority or some kind of a regional authority, some sort of thing like that. And then the other one is, what we're working on right now. We're pushing Amtrak to be more bold and innovative. We've told them right up front that you're going to have to do things that you've never done before if you want to do anything between the Midwest and the East Coast. Because right now, Ohio is a barrier. If you're in Detroit and you want to train to the East Coast, forget it. Ohio's not going to participate. And if it's state driven, the state in the middle dictates the rules, and that's what you've got here. So that's why we need a regional focus. We need to look at any kind of opportunity out there to work around Ohio's obstinance. We need to look for innovative solutions. Why we made this proposal. This is kind of a new direction. We realize it's a new direction for Amtrak. It could work, we think. So here's the route. Pretty self-evident. Your train would originate in the Detroit metro area about 8:30 in the morning, be in Toledo about 10, and then Cleveland around noon, into New York late in the evening. Vice versa, leave New York early in the morning, be a daytime run across upstate New York, be in Cleveland at about 5, Toledo at about 7, and back to Detroit at about 8:30 in the evening. The beauty of this is there's multiple markets here. We think the ridership's going to be phenomenal. And as I've told Ed, and Ed knows as well as I do, that we think if it's done right, we think the ridership could equal or beat that of the Lakeshore Limited itself. It really has a lot of potential.
It probably exceed it,
I
in
wouldn't
all
be
honesty,
surprised.
because in New
Oh,
York,
yeah.
they lack an early morning departure out of Albany to the east, and an afternoon departure, I think, or Albany to the west, and an afternoon departure from Detroit or from
Right.
Buffalo to the east. This would open up the possibility of actual day trips between those, along that section of the route that you can't do now. Cleveland already puts a decent amount of people on the train for having crappy station times. I mean, having it during the day, I think it would just explode. I mean, Margaret Clark from Amtrak was just on the Lakeshore Limited here in the last several days, and she said it was packed to the gills. She actually gave up her seat and went and sat in the lounge car so another customer could have her seat. Now, part of that may have been due to, people were getting skeevish about the airlines with the government shutdown, but that train moves the equivalent of more than 6 Boeing 737s every day with the crappy station times over a big
Yeah, it's
portion of the
amazing.
route.
It's amazing.
And the other question you have to ask yourself is how many people were unable to get a ticket for that precise time because they were
Yeah, we don't know.
they were all filled up.
Yeah.
I do know that Gary Proffitt, who's the chairman of ESPA, lives somewhere between Albany and New York City. And just a few weeks ago, he was trying to go to Buffalo to visit family there with his wife, and they couldn't go on the train. Everything was sold out.
Yeah,
He could not get a seat.
Yeah, the funny part about that is most of the sellouts are between Syracuse and Buffalo in Western
And,
New York. You wouldn't think that that's the case, but
and
that's
there, yeah,
that's a routine occurrence up there.
there's a couple of times that I wanted to go up and see my kids in Massachusetts that I've had to adjust schedule simply because the Lakeshore, one way or the other, or sometimes both, was sold out.
And
Yeah,
it's kind of sad that they don't have a mechanism to track this, to find out how many people would have taken that train had they had access to a ticket.
that's a good question, and I think that's one we should ask. All right.
Yeah, how many people are turning away? That would be
Yeah.
good to know.
Bill,
Yeah.
I have a question about the route, if you don't mind. Does this assume the Toledo station current would be used? And
Yeah.
I don't see that this is going by Metro Toledo or Metro Detroit.
No, not initially. I'll get into that in a little bit. But this was a minimalist approach that we took, low capital costs. So here we are. It's reasonably quick to implement because it operates on a major trunk line. You don't need to make a lot of investments. You don't need new maintenance and layover facilities. You're using existing train stations, although some, like Sandusky or Elyria, might be skipped initially until they get dual platforms. You're using existing equipment. That is, as the aero train sets come online, there's going to be Amfleets available for this, either Amfleet 1s or 2s. Just minimal improvements to tracker signals. We don't see much there. And yet it would connect with local transit. So you'd have these, you don't have those connections with the Lakeshore because it's at night. So it has a lot going for it at not much cost. And for ease of implementation, I mean, it's practically a no-brainer. We see that it would only need like 2 sets of equipment. They'd turn overnight at the endpoints. And you'd probably have a dozen to 16 cars dedicated to this service. You could run 6 to 8 car trains, something of that sort. A lot of feeder buses from, offline cities like Columbus and Youngstown. It's again, it's a start of a transportation system, and I think that's the way to look at it.
Right.
Yeah,
And if the Detroit Toledo Cleveland corridor advances and they decide to route it past Detroit Metro Airport, then obviously you reroute this train as well at that point
yeah,
once the capital
absolutely. Yeah.
investment's made.
This is a starter. It's not the end all. You're going to see eventually things that might happen, like places like Syracuse where they need to put a new overpass in to add rail capacity or a dual platform, things like that.
And we would like to see Amtrak, if this advances, we would like to see Amtrak do an ask to Congress to do just enough capital improvements on this route so we can get a 90% on-time performance. And those, obviously, anything that they put into this is going to benefit all the corridors that are in the pipeline. Yeah, all the CIDs.
Cons, really, there aren't many. The biggest question is, will Amtrak take the lead? Early indications is that they may look at this. That's a tectonic shift for Amtrak to say this.
Yeah, they're not saying no.
No, they're not saying no. They're not saying yes either, but they're looking at it. They're aware of this proposal. Too soon to say how it's going to end up, but it's a good sign. If they decide to do something with it, then we get congressional support. And I'm sure that if Amtrak got behind it, the support would be there for this. One thing they needed to find out about is what the role of Congress is in this, since it involves a long distance route. There may be questions about that. We don't know yet. That has to be determined. Negotiations with the host railroads have to take place. You know how that can be. And then there could be issues that we haven't anticipated, but I really don't see any right now. Basically how we are. Ed, did you have something there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that also, according to Gary Profit, that freight traffic in upstate New York is down 30%. So this probably shouldn't be a huge issue to get this train added, even from CSX's perspective.
Right.
I think traffic is probably down a little bit, even on the NS line in Northern Ohio, because I used to live in Berea, and the last couple of years there just doesn't seem to be as much freight traffic on the line. I mean, it's still busy line, without a doubt, but it's not like it was 6, 7, 8 years ago.
And here's the results. Of course, daytime service to all points. That's a key goal. We don't have to ride DRAC track anymore. We'll have daytime service to every place along that route. You'll have a 1 day round trip between Detroit and Cleveland, and that's a first. Direct Detroit Toledo East Coast service. That's a first. And as Ed mentioned, an afternoon Buffalo to Albany, New York run. Which they don't have. The last train of the day going east is the Maple Leaf, and that's at like 12:30. So this would be around 3:30 in the afternoon. And vice versa, you'd have an early departure out of New York City, a morning run across upstate New York, which they don't have now. Both of these allows for 1 day trips, just like Ed stated, which you don't have now. I lived in Albany for a while, and it was frustrating to me that you have 4 trains going to Buffalo from Albany, but you can't make 1 day trips. Just the way the schedules were set up. It's going to increase the demand for more service in Ohio and elsewhere. And this is how I think we outflank, the state government in Ohio, because if this thing takes off, the demand is going to just be crazy. And I think it's going to lead to calls from other places that are the have-nots and say, well, where's our train? And we're going to point right at the legislature. It's up to them. You need to talk to them. And again, lots of connection with local transit like RTA in Cleveland. You can probably connect with the transit operator here in Toledo, TARTA, and others. And so you're going to have a multiplier effect where you're going to be able to get to a lot of places. And I think it might be a good time to talk about having a fare card for any form of travel, public transportation to get to and from the Amtrak stops. I think, again, one thing that probably, if this thing did go into service initially, they would not be stopping in places like Dunkirk, Ashtabula, Elyria, or Sandusky, because you need to put money into the stations. And again, that's where the congressional and state support is going to come from, or the local support. We had conversations with Tom Timoneer, who is the city manager of Ashtabula. He's all over it. He's ready to go. So, and this gives people a rallying point. It's going to be much easier for us to advocate for this because it's a positive thing. I see nothing but good things here. And here's the schedule for all you detail wonks. Probably option 1 going west is the most likely. And yeah, it leaves New York City early, but it also hits Croton, Harmon, and Poughkeepsie at ideal times. So you're going to still get good ridership out of the New York metro region. And again, departing Albany at about 8:20 20 a.m., into Buffalo about 1:30, into Cleveland at about 5 o'clock, Toledo at 7:10, and Detroit at 8:30. It goes up to Pontiac to the servicing facility up there and overnights and comes back. And then the next morning it leaves Cleveland, Detroit about 8:30 or so. Cleveland is at about noon, and Buffalo around 3:30, and into New York at around 11 or so. It's an ideal schedule, gives us a foot in the door. And I think if it does well, then guess what? We can come back and say, we think there should be another train on this route, don't you? And particularly if Amtrak drives this. And here's an interesting aside, is that there was a article in the September 10th issue of Trains magazine, where one of the Amtrak officials at a board meeting said something to the effect of, we know that our Northeast Corridor departures all produce positive cash revenue, and we're now considering some other routes around the country, either state-supported or system routes, where additional service might produce the same result. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Are they actually considering new trains? If so, where and when? And so we asked Margaret Clark about that, and the answer came back that, yeah, they're seriously thinking about this, and it's too soon to say how it will go. Again, it's not a no, but it's hard to say what they're going to do. This is going to change things if it happens.
Yeah, it wasn't that many years ago. Amtrak would have told us to go pound salt, and we didn't hear that this time.
A lot of the time, they wouldn't even listen.
Tom had a question in the chat. He just wanted to know if we've reached out to the congressional reps along the route yet. I'll let you field that one, Bill.
Yes, we have. We've reached out to several of them. Congressman Kelly up in Erie, PA, David Joyce from Lake County,
Chantel Brown in
Chantel
Cleveland.
Brown from the East Cleveland area, and also
Marcy.
Marcy
Yep.
Captor's office, David Zavek there. We've been talking to them. We want to reach out to more.
It's a universal support, two
Yeah.
Republicans, two Democrats.
Also, the MPOs, we've been talking to NOACA. We've talked to TMACOG, the Sandusky MPO, the Erie MPO. It's always been uniformly supportive and excited, to the point where I just can't believe how excited these people are. And the interesting thing about this proposal is that it's really elegant in its simplicity, and it's easily understood. People it's a rallying point, and it's something positive. It's one thing to say, yeah, Amtrak needs more funding. Well, what does that mean? It's still kind of vague and abstract. But when you say, we want to put a train in your town at 5 p.m., oh, that's a different matter. And I think that's why this thing has kind of grown legs, and it's taken off. And we're almost to the point now where there's so much going on that we can't keep up with it. And so we're going to be looking for help, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. So, well, and that's the first bullet point here. We need to bring additional help in some way or another. I've been in discussions with Lisa Buffo, who's a vice chair at All Aboard Ohio. They have a thing now where they have like a bulletin board for advocacy for interns and things of that, people of that kind. And she says, we need to find a way to get you help. And I said, we need it bad, because really there's only a very few of us doing this. So we need more boots in the ground in Cleveland, Toledo, Sandusky, anywhere. And particularly one place where NOPRA can help is with connections to Southeast Michigan. Who's there that might support us? Who's in Congress? Who are the advocates up there and in the Toledo area? Because we're going to have to make ourselves heard, and we have to be ready if Amtrak does go ahead with this thing, because we're going to want to be out there pushing our delegations to support this, which I think they will, but they need to have us win in their sails. So that's really an important part from the advocacy point of view. There's going to be more outreach to MPOs. We're looking at the Buffalo MPO, which is alphabet soup I won't pronounce because it's too hard to remember. There's SIMCOG in Southeast Michigan, the cities, other localities, leaders, anybody like that. We may approach funders like the George Gunn Foundation in Cleveland or something like that, because they've funded stuff like this before to bring in maybe paid help, I hope. We're going to work directly with members of Congress, which is something we've already done. Additional dialogue with Amtrak. Praise and push, praise and push. This is the kind of thing we're doing with them. Like I said, we came in at the very beginning saying that you're going to have to think outside the box if you're going to make a dent in Ohio, because it won't happen any other way. Bless All Aboard Ohio. They're doing all the right things, but they're getting kicked in the teeth just like we did for years. You have to look at ways to do this. And, so I think that, again, if this train does start to run, it's going to create a demand elsewhere. We're going to have to push workarounds, joint powers authorities, regional authorities, etc. And the focus should be regional, multi-state. The problem with the corridor ID process is that if you've got 3 states and the state in the middle says no, you're not going to get your service. It's not going to happen. And Ohio's a big enough state and a strategically located position that it's dragging down Southeast Michigan, Erie, PA, even Buffalo, New York, if they want daytime service to the west. It's a problem. It's a regional problem. It's not just a state problem. And I think we have to look at it in that fashion. So here's what we need to do. We need to break the barrier. And I think we've got one possible way to do it. So I know you guys are all in on this, and I appreciate that. But it's gonna be work. Talk among yourselves. Who can you reach out to? Who can you bring in? I know that Sally Fish and others have been helpful, but we need to start reaching out. Who do you know? Who can help us? Is there somebody out there who would be willing to donate charitable help or in-kind help, anything of that sort? Who are contacts in the area and up in Michigan that we should be talking to? So I want you to think about that. This is where we are. I think we're on a good path. I'm just excited. I've never seen anything like this ever happen. It started out as a funny little idea because I think that the reason it started was because it was so difficult to get into Chicago. And let me backtrack a little bit. Why Detroit? Why didn't we go to Chicago? Well, obviously congestion between Porter, Indiana and Chicago. That's a major project and it's in the billions. That's beyond the scope of this here. People in Southeast Michigan wanted direct train service to the east for many years. What was it, Ed? You had a couple of other reasons. I can't remember now. Anyway, you have several reasons for that.
I'm
And
here.
so you had congestion going into Chicago. You've had a desire on the part of people in Michigan to have a direct train to the east, and of course the equipment rotation. You only need 2 sets of equipment for this, as opposed to going to Chicago where you need 3.
Yeah, Chicago has to be, they have to get that run down to 16 hours in order to get it. They could get to 2 sets of equipment but they can't do that until they do the south of the lake bypass.
Right. Was there another reason you mentioned? I can't remember what it was.
About why Detroit? Oh yeah, because even Amtrak itself, from our understanding from ESPA, is that even Amtrak has said that the Detroit to New York City is their largest untapped long distance market.
Yeah. Obviously, to me, there's so many possibilities for convenience for traveling.
Bill, I'm thinking about the people in the Toledo area. If they still wanted to go into Massachusetts, could they go to Schenectady, Albany area, get off, and then get on the other train and go on in? Or if you want to go to Chicago, go to Detroit, get on the other train, and go to Chicago.
Well, not by the time you get to Detroit from the east, it's like 8:45, 9 o'clock. So you're not going to go to Chicago without a stayover. Going east, if you want to go to Boston, you would be into Albany around 8 or 9 p.m. And I don't know if that would work either.
55 was projected that you had.
What was it?
8:55 p.m.
Yeah,
was
that's
the
about 9
projected
p.m.
that you had.
Yeah, so you could possibly get a bus if there is one. I will say that there's also a project going on in Massachusetts where they want to increase the number of trains between Boston and Albany. So there may be an opportunity for connections, but really prime market for this is between Detroit, Cleveland, and Buffalo in upstate New York. And that's going to be the focus of this thing. I think you could end up with a situation where you try to serve too many markets and really then if this train succeeds as it is, then you can come back. Well, we need a second train, another train on this route, and at that point, then you're starting
For
to
what
look at.
it's worth, they're doing some major work around Pittsfield, Massachusetts. The last couple times I went to visit my kids, Amtrak had charter buses at Albany. One was an express direct to Boston, and one was a local, if you will, that would stop at Pittsfield
Yeah,
and Springfield, and I think Worcester and one other before it got into Boston. I've passed other trains on that line between Springfield and Albany, so there might be other options.
yeah,
And yeah, if this thing is successful, but hey, we need more people. I mean, we need more trains between Albany and Boston. It might push the people in Massachusetts to do a state sponsored or or state health service, as well as the people at Amtrak.
Part of the reason for the buses, there was a sinkhole that opened up
Yeah, yeah.
on the Amtrak line from Albany East before it
Yeah, that's the
connects with
old B&A
CSX.
line.
Yeah, and they got it back open now, so I don't know if those buses are still running or not. That's why we ended up with Detroit as the western endpoint. And once we got into that, then we realized that really there weren't a lot of capital costs. It was pretty straight. And when I talked to Gary Profit about this, he was all enthusiastic. He was all in on it immediately. He said that, as Ed pointed out, that CSX freight traffic has declined by about 30%. And so he doesn't see any problem with running this single train. When you get into more than one train, then you start getting issues. But for this, it may not be a problem. Of course, CSX being what it is probably going to be very stubborn, but that's normal. So we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. So this is our proposal. I'm really excited about it. I think it's, again, something that people are going to rally to. They already have. It was really gratifying to hear the positive feedback that we got from Margaret Clark about this. So it's not being dismissed. They are aware of what we're doing, and they're probably going to take a look at it. We don't know how long it'll take, and what obstacles they'll encounter, but hey, I'll take it. It's the best news we've heard in a long time.
Yeah. Hey, does anybody have a contact at SEMCOG? We would like to talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and congressional reps up that way.
Yeah, I have
Um,
this is Roger from TMACOG. Yeah, I have a contact at SEMCOG. I can send it to Bill.
Oh,
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Yeah, any help would be great, Roger, and good to see you.
And send that to me too, would you, Roger?
Having trouble finding the mute button. Yeah, definitely we'll do that, Glenn.
Thanks.
Well, that's it, folks. Do you have any more questions for me or Ed?
No, just a comment. I think you're right. I temper this because I loathe meetings. I rather put a spike in the temple of my head slowly than to do another meeting. But that being said, I think between you guys and us and all aboard Ohio, we should probably get together on a monthly meeting to develop a strategic plan
Sure.
to work together in conjunction and start farming out some of the work.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's do that. Let's set a date and we'll get together. We'll
Sure,
bring some other people in and see what shakes out.
absolutely.
And that's actually what we've got the LRA group and we can just add people to that. And because after this meeting today with Margaret Clark, I think we need to have a full-blown LRA meeting and bring on and our other counterparts. And so, yeah, this thing seems like it's got some momentum and it's easy to support. So I think it's really our best shot to do something short term. It's going to make it easier to do the corridor ID projects because now you've got something to point to. I think that's an important consideration. You were just talking, Glenn, about it being an afterthought. Well, this definitely would make you something more than an afterthought, believe me.
The economics are all there. I'm dying to see the completion of stage two's report to the FRA because that should have the nuts and bolts about costs and stuff on the different corridors.
Yeah. Do you have any idea when that's going to be?
I have no idea. Roger, do you know?
I don't know that, Glenn. John Esterly is going to be at our next TMACOG passenger rail meeting.
Okay.
John would be probably the best person to ask that question.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's all we have. I tell you what, in all the years of advocacy, this is the most exciting thing I've ever been associated with. It really is.
We got an update from Tom about Toledo Train Day. Tom, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, we have taken National Train Day Toledo off of life support. At the last steering committee meeting, we talked about this possibility because when we had our elections that were scheduled for September, nobody stepped up. And for the same reasons that I stepped down from chairmanship of NOPRA, I could not step up to be chair of National Train Day. Ed could not continue as chair of National Train Day. We weren't getting the the corporate support we needed to continue the program. So it was decided and we will get all the documentation together and collect it in one place and make sure it is archived if anybody would want to pick up the ball and resurrect it sometime further down the road. But we just, as has been said many times by many people, we wanted to be more than just another train show. It was to be an educational event about rail in general and passenger rail in specific, having lost the support of Amtrak and other entities that said, well, if they're not going to support it, there's no reason for us to support it. We just figured that it was time to let it go until further notice. So that's it. It's National Train Day Toledo as such has ceased to exist.
Let me toss out a couple of things in response to that. One thing that we suggested to Margaret Clark is that as these new aerotrain sets are produced on the West Coast and migrate to the Northeast, that there should be equipment displays. But we really didn't have a specific place or a time or any of that. Well, you just gave me one. And I think Ed and I will work on, we're going to talk to, my thought is we should talk to Margaret and suggest an aerotrain display at Toledo Station sometime in the future, either in connection with National Train Day or the Fall 26 meeting of RPA in Toledo. So obviously, National Train Day needs help, and I think we should talk to Margaret about getting Amtrak to endorse that. Okay, what do they really have to do? Not much. I think this is something that we should approach them on, and it would help highlight our issue here with the Great Lakes Limited. Ed, if you're in on this, I think we should be doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's make this a point of discussion if we're going to have an LRA group meeting, and everyone here will be invited. And then we can discuss how we're going to go about this. But I definitely think it's a tragic loss, to not have the National Train Day meeting here in Toledo.
Yeah, well, I share your thoughts,
Yeah.
but if we were to resurrect it, we would need a whole new committee.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had hoped that we could keep this going long enough that these corridors would have kicked in and there would be more energy.
Yeah.
There is an organization up east that has proposed an East Coast to Los Angeles train, one seat, with its initial startup date as May 10th of 2026, which coincides with the anniversary of the setting of the Golden Spike.
Yeah.
But I really haven't heard any more. That would have been a possibility, but I haven't seen any more on it. And they're what, 6 months or less from that startup, and the upgrading of the stations along that route, because it comes across, I think it's Hoboken through Harrisburg to Pittsburgh to Cleveland, Chicago, and then follows the Southwest Chief route as far as Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
And I, for one, having family in LA that I just visited via Amtrak in August, would be very interested in a one-seat ride to LA or a one-seat ride to the East Coast where I could take Acela up and then go see my kids in Amherst, Massachusetts. But I haven't seen enough concrete evidence to the development and startup of that route. That was my one string thread that I was holding on to trying to keep Toledo's Train Day going, but it just it wasn't enough.
Well, you need help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And we need a new committee.
yeah.
There's approximately $7,000 in the National Train Day Toledo Treasury. There is a 501c3. We're in the process of transferring that money back to NOPRA, which was the umbrella organization that it had been operating on since for COVID, but that hasn't actually happened yet. But again, to get a National Train Day Toledo going, we would need an entirely committee, have a No,
Yeah, I agree. And so, if we have and we're planning to at this point have an LRA full meeting, that should be an agenda item. You have cash on hand, that's a big help. There may be things you can do, but I think the key thing right now is outreach to bring people in. And I'm thinking of Sally Fish and Katie Thomas over there at the Ability Center. Well, Sally's at the city of Toledo now, but if they don't do it, then they probably know people who can help. Yeah, absolutely. We need to get that going. I think that's going to be key to this strategy to get this train running. You could have that, you have other displays, but I think a key part of this also, again, is to have Amtrak buy into it. They need to be more proactive. This is part of that. At the time they backed away, they were in kind of a siege mentality and they just didn't see the benefit of it, even if it didn't cost them much of anything. Well, this is a different day. It's a different
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
There's different
And I'm
circumstances.
hoping that with your proposal and with the corridors that have been identified and farther down the line, Amtrak's long distance corridors that they've talked about that would run through Ohio in general and Toledo in specific, Amtrak would be willing to be a partner to some extent to revitalizing and reinvigorating National Train Day, not only in Toledo but across these lines.
Yeah. So we should
Okay.
look for Amtrak sponsorship. I think that's going to be a key ask. I'm all in on that. If
Good.
there's anything we can do to help that along, I think we should.
Okay. Well, now moving right along, the
Yeah.
next thing is that NOPRA, we have changed our post office box number. Our new post office box is 359 Toledo, Ohio, and there's our address right there. It's 43697 as a zip code. New business. Now, as you know, we got the 2026 Rail Nation Fall Passenger Conference there coming in September. We're kind of stoked about that. Like I said, Bill, this would be a really good thing to get you guys and all aboard Ohio and us all together in a room and figure out. And Amtrak, like with the Toledo Train Day, have one of those sets on the board there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
will definitely, we're definitely stoked about that and can't wait to see that. You probably all heard or seen at one time the Ohio's passenger rail study. I sent out a letter from Tim Porter about that he sent to the editor of the Blade on his opinion about the rail study. And I have to agree with him that I thought the 2025 plan was pretty anemic, even though they said they had a whole chapter on passenger rail. It it was a nice exercise in saying a lot of words without saying anything. If you get a chance later on, I'll put the link to the rail study in the minutes, and you can see them. Tom, you want to talk about the record swap with All Aboard Ohio?
Well, just we're going to get all of our records and data together that's archived as NOPRA and make it available to Sally and the All Aboard Ohio Toledo chapter. That's really about all I've got.
This is going in line with the one pillar that I mentioned that we're going to be working. We want to work more close. I think we want to work more closely with both All Aboard Ohio and Lakeshore Alliance, and because there's strength in numbers,
Well,
and this is
it's my understanding that NOPRA has been a part of Lakeshore Alliance since its founding.
Yes.
yeah. I haven't been to a meeting, for so I feel
Yeah.
bad, but I feel it needed to be said.
One thing I want to back up a bit. Randy Orban is no longer a part of ORDC as of, I don't know if that happened at yesterday's meeting or before yesterday's meeting, but I've seen several postings from All Aboard Ohio saying that he is no longer a member of ORDC. And I think it would be a good opportunity. I don't know what the process is, but it would be a good opportunity, A, to get someone from passenger rail community, passenger rail advocacy community, and from Northern Ohio. I will selfishly say from Northwest Ohio, involved with ORDC. Now, that could well be either Representative Michelle Grimm or John Esterly, since John Esterly's roots are here in Northwest Ohio. But, that's me.
Okay.
Well, we could talk about that, when all Board Ohio
Sure.
Lakeshore Alliance and that we sit down, we can discuss that.
Yeah, we should discuss that with John at the Timocog meeting. I'll mention it. I'll send him a text so he's not blindsided, and he may be able to come with some insight on what the procedure is.
Sure. Okay. Anyway, moving on. We're going to need to purchase a table, a couple chairs, and a banner for events. And not only just and the table we got currently are using is kind of a monster. And when you're 70 years old, the last thing you want to do is cart around
Kid,
a 30-pound table. So we're going to purchase something that's a little bit lighter and a little bit easier to handle. So
Yeah.
we'll be putting that on our list of things to buy. The last thing is we're going to also look at I was taking a look at our NOPRA brochure, the last one. We think it definitely needs an update, and we'll be going through it and looking at our brochure and updating on that. Now, the last thing I wanted to put up was one of the things that I wanted to do at our meetings is to invite our friends from you guys, Lakeshore Alliance, Dark, who works with the Ability Center, All Board Ohio, and Michigan Association of Passenger Rail, to kind of say, well, this is what we're doing so far, to update. Because we only got like 2 minutes left here, I'm going to, and we've already heard enough from you, Bill. So just you and I sit down.
Well, okay, I'll just go right now.
But well, Dark has got a meeting next week on the 18th. They've sent out an invite, and it's on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. There's nobody from All Aboard Ohio here today on this meeting, so we'll skip that. And the only thing about the Michigan Association of Passenger Rail, I was up there 2 months ago, and I asked them kind of point blank if they had a rail route in mind from the Toledo to the Detroit area. And after 5 minutes, the short answer was no, we haven't figured that out yet. So I'm planning to go to their next meeting, see if they have something, and also we're going to start putting them on our list to be invited for future meetings. And
when is your next meeting?
it will be in January. Hang on for a second here. I want to say January 16th.
No, Marp.
On Marp, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll send that out.
Yeah, you had ours is January 16th.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah, Marp has a board meeting coming up here soon.
Yeah.
I think either later this month or next month. I'm not sure. Ed, you had a little dialogue with their chair, Tom Fletcher.
Yeah, I did.
How I was telling you that, Lakeshore, All Board Ohio, and NOPRA should be involved in like a strategy group. I would even add them, seeing how they're the ending point at the one line.
Yeah.
This way it makes them more for a cohesive bunch. And also it might make passing over state routes might be a little bit easier if we had some cohesiveness.
Yeah, Marp is a member of the Lakeshore Rail Alliance. They just had their meeting on Veterans Day on the 11th. So they were supposed to talk about all this. I don't know what's come of it. I haven't heard anything. As I said, Ed did talk to their chair, Tom Fletcher. I think they're kind of in a transition. The former chair, John Guttinger, is kind of stepping away. So there's been probably some changeover and rethinking and stuff like that going on. So we need to follow up with them, Ed.
And so anyway, So that's the end of the meeting there, folks. And it's 3:31. And I want to thank you for taking the time to hear my rants and stuff like that. So
Thanks, Glenn.
we will be seeing you around the thing. Once I have this down, I will have links to different things that we have discussed in our on our Facebook. So you'll be able to get
When
in
is your
touch.
next meeting? January
January 16th, 2
16th.
o'clock.
Okay, okay.
All right then. Well, thanks again for your time, and
Thank you.
we'll be seeing you around the block.
Happy holidays to everyone, for
Yeah.
all of
Same to you. Good to
Yeah.
see you guys.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
them. Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.